You have a number, not $10,000. The other number, the one that tells you how close to zero you are. You know it without checking. It was already in the back of your head before you picked up your phone this morning. Paycheck comes in on Friday. By Tuesday, you already know it's gone. Not spent recklessly, just gone. Rent, insurance. The thing that broke last month you're still catching up on. You watch it land and you watch it leave, and the account goes back to somewhere between $37 and nothing. You have told yourself you will start saving when things calm down. After this bill, after this month, after the next raise. But the next chapter never quite arrives, and the cycle keeps running and the number stays low. Here is what nobody explains about that cycle. The reason it keeps repeating is not what you think it is. It is not income. It is not willpower. It is that you have never seen what actually waits on the other side of $10,000 saved. Because if you understood what that number quietly does to you, the path to get there would look completely different. This is exactly what changes, all of it. If you want more of this, the real mechanics underneath the money decisions most people never examine, subscribe right now. This channel is for anyone tired of being told to budget harder and still ending up in the same place. Stay with me. Before $10,000, every financial decision you make is passing through a filter you do not know is there. You call it being responsible, being realistic, knowing your limits, and it is those things. But underneath all of them is one question running in the background of every choice. What happens if this goes wrong and I cannot absorb it? Since the answer is almost always something you cannot financially survive, the default wins. You stay in the job, you accept the offer. You say yes to things you wanted to say no to. You let the opportunity pass and call it being practical. That is not a character flaw. That is math on a zero margin. What $10,000 does, the first and most important thing, is quiet that filter. And when a filter that every major decision has been running through for years finally goes quiet, everything that comes after it is different. That single shift is responsible for nearly everything else on this list. There is a hidden cost on every financial decision you make before $10,000. I call it the fear tax. You are offered a job. The salary is lower than it should be. You know it. They know it. Before $10,000, you take it anyway, not because you think you are worth less, but because you cannot afford 2 weeks between offers. The fear tax takes the difference. You are in a negotiation. The number on the table is low. Before $10,000, you accept it, because you cannot absorb what happens if they walk. The fear tax takes your leverage. You find out about a better apartment. The lease break on your current place cost $900. Before $10,000, you stay. The fear tax keeps you there. In every one of those moments, the decision was not made by you. It was made by the balance. You were present but not in control. After $10,000, the fear tax does not vanish, but for the first time you can choose not to pay it. You can ask for the weekend to think. You can say no to the low offer and survive the gap. You can walk away and mean it. The person across from you in every negotiation has always been able to sense whether you could afford to say no. Your posture told them. The speed of your yes told them. $10,000 changes what your posture says, and that changes every high-stakes conversation that follows. Your fridge stops cooling on a Saturday morning. Before $10,000, that is not an appliance problem. It is a financial emergency. A replacement runs $800 to $1,200. A repair might be $300 if you are lucky. You do not have time to find out which. You call someone, get whatever answer they give you, pay it or charge it, and absorb it into a month that was already tight. You did not choose how to handle it. The timeline chose for you. After $10,000, the same fridge fails on the same Saturday, but the next 10 seconds are different. Instead of the options collapsing into one, they open. You can take a day to look up whether repair is worth it. You can compare what a replacement actually costs without the pressure of needing it solved by Sunday. A $400 repair bill is a decision now, a real one with alternatives, with you in control of the outcome. That shift plays out everywhere. The medical bill, the car, the unexpected cost that used to derail an entire month. These do not become welcome. They just stop being catastrophic. And the difference between a crisis and an inconvenience is not the size of the expense. It is the size of the buffer. $10,000 is where that starts. Here is the change that shows up in the most unexpected places. Financial stress does not stay in the account. It leaks. You snap at someone at work over something minor and replay it later wondering where that came from. You are short with someone at home over something that should not have escalated. You sit in a meeting that actually mattered and could not concentrate. You drove to work already depleted before anything had happened. None of that felt like money, but it was. When you are operating on zero financial margin, your brain is running a background calculation every hour of every day, whether you can absorb a surprise, whether the math is going to hold, whether one wrong thing tips everything over. That process uses real capacity, cognitive capacity, patience, the ability to stay present. You did not run short on patience. You ran short on the capacity that financial stress had already consumed. After $10,000, that background process quiets. Over weeks, then months, the constant low-level calculation runs less often, and the capacity it was using starts coming back. You are more present at work, more even-tempered at home, better at hearing what is actually being said in a conversation instead of planning your exit. The people around you notice before you do, not because you said anything about money, because the bandwidth you have been operating without for years is suddenly there, and it shows in everything. Here is something nobody says out loud about spending, but it is true for almost everyone. A lot of the money you have spent in your adult life was not for you. Your friends are planning a trip. The flights alone are $400 each. The math does not work, but you say yes anyway because saying no means explaining yourself, and explaining yourself means admitting something you are not ready to say out loud, so you book it. You spend the trip half present, doing the recovery math in the background, and come home to a card balance that takes 3 months to clear. That was not a vacation. That was the price of not having to explain. The upgrade you bought not because you wanted it, but because the older version made you feel behind. The gift you overspent on because the right amount felt like it said the wrong thing about you. All of it running through the same filter. How do I avoid looking like someone who cannot? After $10,000, something clears. You start seeing the difference between what you actually want and what you have been buying to hold an image together. And you realize that the people you were spending to impress were either not watching, did not care, or were doing the exact same thing with their own card and keeping it quiet. From here, you start spending on things that are genuinely yours, not things that manage the fear, things you actually want. And those tend to be quieter and almost always cheaper than the image you were maintaining. Getting from $0 to $10,000 is the hardest stretch you will ever do. It is slower than you expect, more uncomfortable than it looks, and it requires something most advice about how to save money skips over entirely. Proving to yourself for the first time that you can hold money instead of consuming it the moment it arrives. Before this milestone, part of you does not fully believe it is possible. Not for you specifically. You have watched money arrive and leave your entire adult life. The pattern felt permanent. Like building savings was something other people did in other circumstances. $10,000 is the first proof that the pattern can break, and that proof changes something behavioral that the number alone cannot capture. Getting from $10,000 to $20,000 happens faster. Not because you earn more, because you stopped stopping. The discipline that felt impossible is now documented in your own account. You absorb hits without losing momentum. You stop dipping into savings for things that are not real emergencies because you now know exactly what it costs to rebuild. That awareness alone changes how you spend. The hardest part of building wealth is never the math. It is the first proof that the cycle can break. You have it now. Everything that follows builds on it and builds faster than what got you here. This is the one almost nobody talks about, and it may matter more than everything else combined. Before $10,000, your thinking runs in a specific mode. Not full crisis, you are not in danger every minute, but the baseline is defensive. You are managing, containing, holding the line, and when you are in that mode, a specific category of information goes invisible: opportunity. Not because opportunity stopped appearing. The freelance project that needed 2 weeks of upfront time before it paid. The job posting you saw but did not apply for because it required a gap between roles. The idea you kept returning to but never started because starting required absorbing a risk you could not take. All of it was there. Survival mode filters it before it reaches your decision-making. Your brain does not present you with options it cannot afford to act on. After $10,000, the filter loosens. You start applying. You start asking. You start saying, "Let me look into this." Not recklessly. The discipline that got you here does not vanish. But the wall between you and possibility is lower, and things that were always available start coming into focus. The opportunities were never the problem. You were surrounded by them the entire time. You just needed enough ground under you to see them clearly. So back to that moment. You open the app. 5 digits, $10,000 and something. The fear tax quiets. Emergencies become decisions. The stress that was leaking into every room you walked into starts to seal. The spending gets honest. The momentum builds. The opportunities that were invisible start appearing. Same job, same apartment, same life on the outside. Completely different person making every decision inside it. The account that used to go back to somewhere between $37 and nothing, that cycle is broken now, not by a raise, not by luck, by the only thing that actually breaks it. Enough ground under you to stop reacting and start deciding. That is what $10,000 is, not the destination. The first proof sitting in your account in your name that you are someone who builds. And from that proof, everything else follows.